rails and styles, bang. Basically, it's here. Well, I'm doing this actually, it's pointless, but anyway. Oh, little fart noise of that one, that's how tight that one is. Automated and integrated in one sentence, that's fantastic, Matt, we're doing well. So I don't think you wouldn't want to be looking down all the time at a loose tongue. Attention for this, I'm telling you. I saw you drift it, don't drift off, because this is, you know, if you think this is waffle, it's not. Welcome, my name's Matt, this is the channel. I'm going to be making these wardrobes, and that's about as professional as it gets. Right, so what I'm going to be using is a Finsa Hydrofugo moisture resistant board. It's actually called Fiberpan, so it's Finsa Fiberpan Hydrofugo moisture resistant. I'll be using 22mm for the shaker style rail and styles, and I'll be using 18mm for my side panels, and I'll be using 9mm for my middle centre panel. I'm also using an oak veneer MDF, which is down here in the rack. That's also a Finsa board. And all those sheet cuds come from Eco Timber Panels Northampton. I think it's worth using a sheet specialist, which is what they are, just because purely, if that's all they do all day, then they're going to do a good job of it, aren't they? Down to transporting it, storing it, keeping it stable. I've never had no problems from them. I'll also be, in these wardrobes, putting in an integrated LED light strip. Now that is going to be on the Hafele Lux driver, the Hafele Lux automated switches. Automated and integrated in one sentence. That's fantastic, Matt. We're doing well. But it's also, it's not going to be the Hafele light strips. I'm going to be using Amazon. Amazon bought ones. I'll put a link up. I've been using those for like a couple of years now. You can buy them in 4, 5 and 6mm increments, depending on stock. Decent selection of colour temperatures. And I've never had no problems other than connections, which is down to sometimes the previous connectors I've used. Now I'm using Hafele. I've had no issues with them. I think they're a really, really good buy, to be honest with you. Going back to Hafele, I'll be using the Hafele Metallic hinges. I was purely using Blum before, but Hafele contacted me and said, do you want to try some of our Metallic range? So I tried it. I think it's brilliant. I think the only downside is you don't get quite as many options as the Blum or the Grass, which I've previously used, but you can sort of tailor how you make your cabinets to suit. They now do a black range as well, which is a decent price. And I'm going to try that for these ones. I know there'll be no difference in the quality, it's just going to be the colour, so I'll give those a go on these. And I'll be using the Hafele Metallic runners as well, which I really, really like. And they've ironed out a few niggles in those over the time I've been using them, which again, I like from a company to spot that they've got to change a few things. Right, these wardrobes are quite tall, so there'll be a few bits in the video where you'll see I'm integrated hardwood strips and stuff just to help with the taking the sag and the whip out of MDF products, which is quite common to get. So I'm just going to start making them. yeah, slight change of plan there. Normally what I do is I'd actually build all my units and have them against that wall, but these ones are best part of 3 meters, so they don't actually fit underneath the mez floor, which is 2.6 whatever, I don't know. But what I've done in the past, and I did some earlier this year, I had some bigger units, I put them in this space here, which is why that bench, which is usually here, goes over there. I'll actually include a video now of those units that I put in that space. I knew these were coming up and another set that are quite tall, so I sort of left the workshop as it was to put them there, and then last minute I thought, I don't really need to build the bigger ones. The only reason I normally build them is to make sure the doors, do dry runs of the doors and make sure the face frames fit. Well, what I'll do now is I'll include a image of like a brief sort of mock-up I do of the cabinets, which is taken as part of the drawing that the customer gets. I then take that apart and I draw the cabinet material. You can use cut list, I don't always use it. I haven't used it in this instance because there's not a lot of components. And you'll see that to get the height, I've done, in that picture, I've done a top smaller cabinet and then a bottom cabinet, which you'll get out of an 8-foot board. And that just works well for the rail positions and whatnot. So what I've done is I've actually assembled the top cabinet, and that's primarily so I can get this measurement from inside there to inside there, less the overhang on my face frame, which I normally leave at about 1 mil, half a mil, preset to the Domino. I know if I leave it at 1 mil or half a mil, it'll just cover the raw edge with the painted material. And I know that a standard hinge, or I could use a 2 mil hinge, will work. And then everything just sort of, you know, runs quite smoothly. But I'd like to get a physical measurement from inside with the face frames on, because you want that to just sort of sneak in there on the job, really. So I like to do a dry run of that. That now means I can do a dry run of it, but it also means I haven't had to assemble the bigger cupboards. What I've done is, you can see I've put the LR32 holes in. I've put them at the top there as well. I've not put them all the way down the board because I know that they're never going to have them fully shelved out. They're just going to have double hang. So they might want a shelf in the middle underneath the first rail. They might go for a shelf at the bottom for shoes, might go for a shelf at the top, which will be underneath that. They're very unlikely they'll be able to get all 3 in, but what I'll do is I'll get it all fitted and then I'll offer that as all part of the package. I can just nip in here one time and just cut some shelves and edge band them. I've got the light, I've put at that position there, that's around about 55 mil back. That just about clears the hinge position. Sometimes I've set them closer to the front. It damages a bit easier in transit, I've noticed, so I'm sort of probably going to stop doing that. The reason I like them at the front is because the closer you get the lights to the front, the more the lights throw across the clothes. The further you send the lights back into the wardrobe, it looks great for your Instagram photo, but when the customer puts clothes in there, they end up blocking out the lights with the clothes. So I've sort of met in the middle on this one. Yeah, that's it really. And you can see what I've done with the lights as well is, so I've put this piece of solid oak on, which basically will form the junction. If you look at the back, that's dominoed on the back as well. You can see how the slight mishap with the pocket holes. So how I do that is I cut everything all the same size, and then just pre-assembly, I run some oak through the thicknesser planer, and I take off whatever that is, say that's 25 mil. I take the 25 mil off the panel, but I'd forgotten that I hadn't done it, and I'd already started pocket holding and dominoing. It doesn't matter because it doesn't get seen. So yeah, I've sort of adjusted that, and then at the same time, I domino the back of the 25 mil piece of oak to take the bottom wardrobes as well. So what I'll do is I'll build the bottom wardrobe, stick some dominoes in the top piece, and then I'll take that and I'll slide it over, and with some glue on these trims, or you don't even need glue really, just the dominoes going into the carcass material, that 25 by 50 mil piece of oak will keep that to the top shelf. So I'll put up on the screen, actually it'd be easier on SketchUp. It will keep that top shelf really, really rigid because it is round about 1150, I think. So it's quite a wide shelf. I know a lot of people don't do that. They just sort of rely on the fact that you're bolting it to the wall in so many locations. It's not going to sag and whip, but unfortunately these products do. It's just nature of the beast really. So yeah, putting that solid oak lipping on, A, takes care of the raw edge, well, I could edge band it, and B, gives it a bit more rigidity, makes a nice feature. C, I can whack in a hole, which I've done. So I've put this hole in there, give it a slight chamfer, create a channel in the back, And that is actually going to be my contact for the door switch for the LED lights. And actually, I've got some oak veneer stickers that fit over that. So I can actually put a sticker on and it'll just be the little black bit that shows. I've said it now, so if it doesn't happen when you see it on the job, you know I run out of time. But yeah, it can be done. Yeah, and what I can do now is I can make all the doors, drawers, end panels, face frames. And although I haven't made the drawer units, because they're just the cupboard units, I can still make the drawers because we've got this like middle gap where it's going to be like a desk, and actually, yeah, and they're going to be sitting in a chair. There's going to be this little bit of space here. Well, I'm doing this actually, it's pointless. But anyway, there's a little bit of space here where if I make the drawers now and I make them, the drawer fronts, if I make them like 2mm too big by accident, I'll just make the drawer units 2mm too big. And then that space in the middle will be 4mm too small. Yeah, sort of like gives me a bit of tolerance. It means I can crack on with making the painted components, because that's really the goal, I think, now. Get everything that needs spraying made, clamped, going off, etc. So that then my next step is taking it up to the paint room and spraying it in between making the rest of all the fitted components. It sounds simple, but it's not. There's loads of little bits to make, like the cornice and things like that. But yeah, we're just going to jump on it. So I'll film that now, we're making the doors and that, and then we'll have a little exciting chat just like that about how I made them, you know, problems I had, materials I used, yeah, and just some really interesting anecdotes. All right, let's go. And that's how I do doors. Well, that's how I've done these doors anyway. Yeah, basically, there's plenty of videos out there of me doing shaker doors. These are slightly different to what I normally do, but I've probably done them before on the channel, I'm not sure. What I could have done, so I could have used a spindle moulder and done a profile for these, because you wanted them to be beaded. So you have like a, I'll try and include a picture up on the screen. It's easier than me holding the phone and showing you on the spindle moulder, but like the negative and the plus detail of the running it through the spindle moulder, the rails and styles, and you get a really nice tight fitting joint. And I've got ones that do a beaded shaker door, which is what she wanted. But the picture she sent me, the beads are a lot bigger than what those profiles do. Typically for a cabinet door, they're more like, they've definitely been planted on, or they've been on a CNC. The door she showed me, she liked the look of. So I just went and brought some beads, which I've done recently for another lady who actually, maybe she saw that picture, I don't know, who wanted slightly bigger beads. She also wants this to be completely flush, which I'm not a big fan of, but so it's meant I've had to slightly tweak how I make the shaker doors. And then I didn't use the domino in the end. What I did was I did a loose tongue. So I'll just do a 9mm rebate, because the other problem with using the door makers on the spindle moulder is they're typically 5 or 6mm rebates for the panels. And on these, because these are like 8-foot long doors, I really wanted to make the panels 9mm. Typically, I will use a 6mm panel, to be honest with you, and I've never had no problems. But I just thought they're slightly longer than normal. I will put an extra hinge on. I'll probably have 6 hinges on these, to be honest with you. When I fit it and you watch it and there's 5 on, don't think, oh, you know what I mean? I think I'm going to put 6 on. I don't know yet. I'm not signing off on that. But basically, yeah, so I've put a 9mm panel in just to give it a bit more rigidity, which means I might use 5 hinges. And basically, yeah, you bang these loose tongues in, and these loose tongues go in here like this. Basically, we've got like 14mm rebate in. I wish I had an offcut of the thing, but that's like a 14mm rebate. So these loose tongues are cut to 28mm, so they fully fill the rebate on both sides equally. And then the panel's rebated in 14mm, which is quite deep. It's a bit deeper than what you'd normally get with a profile cutter. And then I never do plant-ons, you see. I have done them once on this channel for some mirrored doors. I don't really like the idea of them, especially on long doors, because I kind of feel like once you cut that panel, because you'd be cutting it out of a full sheet, if that panel springs when you've cut it, which they quite often do, you've got really no way of manipulating it back other than the hinges or gluing a smaller infill piece over the front, the fakers. So I've done it like shaker style, traditional style. I'm just used to making doors that way. But when I did the plant-ons, because I put mirrors on, I cut like a little board to help me square the shakers, because I had them they had to be all the exact same size, because they had quite a lot of mirrors on. I'll include a picture of those doors actually. I had loads of mirrors on, so I had to cut this, and I found it was really helpful, except I only cut one for each door basically, whereas I should have really cut all the same, because I've got the panel, so I could have cut them all the same and dropped them in all the openings. Would have been easier. So that's what I've done on these, but I've not done them. I don't need to do them the right width. It's just an experiment, really. People probably do this. I've just never done it. So basically, although these are all the same size, I've done 4, and I've labelled them 4, 3, 2, 1. It's just part of what we do. Just like to be methodical, really. I mean, there's no need. They are all literally the same size. And they're not different colours for different reasons. They're just offcuts. And basically, the idea is, as you're building the door, you'll probably see I drop it in, and then just make sure that I've got my spacings right, and you want to try and wedge it in. Sometimes you'll see they probably fell out in the video. Yeah, drop them in. Then when you turn it back over and clamp them, you can just slide it around. Just make sure you're square. Oh, little fart noise of that one. That's how tight that one is. Yeah, you know, and yeah, worked really, really well. Because also, you know, your rails are going to line through all the way. Not that you ever really get them out. You might get them 1/2 mm out or 1 mm out, but yeah, it's just better than the pencil mark, I think. Worked really, really well, that deal. We're definitely going to adopt that and do that in the future. Always got scraps knocking around. You've got the panel saw to cut them on. It's an absolute dream. So yeah, I also had to extend the face frames, because these doors are 8 foot. I can't get 10 foot Finsa hydrofugo. Although I probably can get it. My supplier doesn't stock it. So when I ordered this, and I remember from last time when I did these tool ones, I had to use a pre-primed MDF, which was good for a reviewing sort of thing for the videos and stuff. But As much as I like that pre-prime stuff, the actual MDF quality is not quite as good as the Finzer. So I've used the best quality one I can get, which is the Finzer Hydrofugo. But my sacrifice is they're in 8-foot lengths, and my face frames need to be about 2.5. So you can see what I've done is I'll put like a compound cut in and dominoed it, ratchet strapped it together, so it's almost like pressed, and clamped it as well on the face so it doesn't open out. And just glued it, and I'll sand and decorate that out. And obviously I just won't put the seam at eye level. Yeah, no, it doesn't sound great. That's just what it is. Right, and a little bit like when you walk into it, like, you know, when you do skirting boards, you really should work your skirting boards in such a way that your scribes, your copes, if you like, are not on eyesight, even though they're supposed to be invisible anyway. But yeah, another little thing, what I've been doing other stuff while I've been gluing those, because I'm a firm believer, loads of people on like carpenters forums and stuff always complaining about MDF opening and springing. It always has done, it always will. Not as much as ply, but the best thing you can do is glue and clamp it and keep it flat at all times. Although I've got two big benches here which are flat, and I've got these like little adjustable legs on, so that when I move them around, if I do decide to move them, like, hey, I've moved that one, I can adjust the legs and re-level them. There's still slight differences in it, and I'm not very happy with that one because I've built the little fire thing next to it. I can't quite get the 8-foot all the way along there, it gets in the way. So I had to just utilise using one bench. Which meant I had to clamp it up in 2 bits, because what I like to do is I like to shim it and get like a straight edge on it. So at all times, it's absolutely bob on. So this bench is a little bit out, so you can see I've dropped like a bit of a shim in there, just to keep it up, just to keep that absolutely bob on all the way around. And it meant I had to glue and clamp it in 2 stages, because I had to let the first 2 go off while I messed around doing other stuff to then come back. So what I did do was I ran out the skirting bits. So these are basically the bits that go at the bottom of the wardrobe. I'll include a picture now. I've pre-mitered those, dominoed them. I'll include a picture actually of me doing it, just so you see it's got 4 dominoes, just so you believe me. Just to hold that as a miter nice and true. And then I'll sand edge that and spray that all as a one piece. And I've done the same with the cornice. Now the cornice, last one I've done, put a picture up. I used my weather bar cutter, which is, it's not in there, where is it? Oh, it doesn't matter. I've got a weather bar cutter. Hello. Do that later. Do a weather bar cutter for the cornice, and it worked really, really well. And then I went to go get the beading for this, and I thought, I don't really want to make another one, because like I've got to buy the timber, because I don't really keep softwood in, or big anything over sort of 60 or 70 mil in hardwood. I don't really keep any in, didn't have any in to making the cornice, so I just thought I'd buy a weather bar. So I bought the weather bar, and I thought, oh, I don't really look big enough. So what I did was I ran some mouldings out, really going for a bit of a walk out. I get my steps in today. Yeah, and I ran some mouldings out just with the palm router. If I've got pictures of it, I'll put it up here. I'm not sure if I took pictures. So basically like little step plant on bits, like that's like a little cock bead. And then I sort of reversed it for the top bit, which is sapele. I know it's a bit gross. It's like tulip, pine and sapele. And I just messed around on a bit of board, you know, like a sort of one-to-one version, just lining it up, holding it and having a little look, drawing around it on a piece of MDF until I landed at this, and coming up with different thicknesses and planings and thicknesses on the thicknesser to get the right profile and stuff. And in the end, I sort of landed with this. I think it looks really nice. Obviously, I imagine that will be one colour. I know it looks a bit gross. And then you just got to take the edges off everything, because that's the problem, not doing it in one profile on the router table or a spindle moulder. I mean, that's a big profile. I haven't got anything that big anyway. It don't take all the, don't knock all the edges off. So you just knock the edges back with a block blade. God, trying to speed these videos up. I think that's everything really. So yeah, I've just been dicking around really doing that. Oh, and the advantage of these, putting these on, the main reason I did it is because then I transferred this over to my panel saw again, and I cut all my beads. Is that the right one? Yeah, I cut all my beads. So all my beads have been cut for all the uprights. Now I measured and did a template for all of the left and rights for all 4 doors, and cut all those, and they're somewhere there, I don't know. All muddled up now, so that'd be fun. sorting them out. But yeah, basically cut them all to the exact same size. Then I whip them over here onto this. I probably covered this on a video before, but I always think it's worth making one of these for doing, even just doing architraves and stuff. You can actually fit it into your miter saw as well. You can just tech screw it into the alley plate, you know, if providing you want to damage your miter saw. But what's really handy is what I like to do is I like to colour in either side of the blade, and then when you slide it over and you want to do your, you know, your, because what I did was I cut them all the right size, then I just slide that over until the end is where I can't see any colouring anymore. It's hard to do left-handed holding like that, and then I'll cut it. And another good reason why I like this is because it tells you where to put your hand when you're doing angles, because sometimes you might be holding a cornice, a kitchen cornice, and you might have to work at like a sort of like an arse about face sort of way. You shouldn't really ever, I can't show you this because I'm holding the phone, but you shouldn't really ever cross your hands when you use a miter saw, but we do sometimes because we like to use our right hand to cut, if you like. So if you do, you know, want to, because you're just sort of always used to holding stuff in your left hand and cutting with your right, and if you're doing repeat processes, you can do one cut, you can sort of like, you can do it the wrong way, but if you're just doing like however many, like 40 beads, you kind of want to build your system up and just use your left and your right hand like you normally use them. So you might cross your hand over. It just means you can keep your hand, because you know where the blade's going to go, well out the way. And obviously then use my right hand to go, probably could show you, couldn't I? Like this, look. Yeah, that was terrible. Anyway, that's what I did. Really good little bit of kit though, really recommend doing it. And also it's like a zero clearance fence, so you don't get any chipping. Really, really handy. Really just, even just good for straight cuts. See, when I first made one of those up for, might even been that miter saw, and used to take it out on sites, I used to use it for architraves. You know, you can just cut all your architraves to the right height, the overall height, which is just by marking the top. It's a really, really good way. I'm not sure I'm going to include this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Basically, you mark your door frame, where you get your door frame, sorry, and you mark the, where your architrave goes, and you mark the top rather than the bottom. Some people mark, so you're marking the plaster with your pencil. Obviously it only really works on sites, but basically if you mark the top, then you can go around, hold all your architraves up to that mark and square cut them all. Anyone can go and do it. Just go around, square cut them all, take a measurement and work it out. You can get all your architraves square cut to the right height, and then you can offer that square cut up to that mark and remiter them. I just think it's easier than working to the inside, personally. But even if you wanted to work to the inside, you could, couldn't you? Thinking about it. Because you could just then run a line, you know, if your architrave was that wide, let's just say you use a 40mm architrave, you could then run your pencil along there, and then you'd know where that point strikes each time if you want to mark the inside. Yeah, imagine if I made that short and did a really good job of it. Right, onwards and upwards, what we're going to do now, just got to do a lot of sanding, cutting the panels, putting the beads in. I'll probably film you at some point. And then we are going to start spraying. And then while I'll be spraying, I'll be nipping, because that's only really a couple of hours a day max, I'll be nipping down to make the drawers. So we'll Okay, that's everything sanded, routed, then sanded again. It's a good idea to sand everything before you router it, because sometimes a little bit of roughness can cause a bit of chatter on the bearing cutter. I use a bearing cutter with a round over bit or a chamfer bit. In this case, I've left one in there that I used this for a bath panel years ago, and I ground the head off so that you can drop that in the rebate of here, and it won't, the bearing won't foul the middle panel. Yeah, I don't normally have to do it because, yeah, like I said, I sort of I don't really favour this option of sticking beads in. It's a bloody pain, especially when you can do it on the router, on the spindle moulder. So if anyone knows of the knife number that will do a 9mm or 10mm middle panel with a deep with a deep sort of beading detail, let me know. Yeah, but last time I did it, I used grab adhesive. That's in this video. This time I just used mitre mate, and actually I only used one bottle of mitre mate. Yeah, quite impressed with that, to be honest with you. And it went really, really well. The main reason I didn't use grab adhesive, and I've always ever done it with grab adhesive, is because there's a lot there. You know, there's obviously that ×4, then there's a couple of little ones, which isn't much. But it's because they're such long doors, it was restacking them. I didn't want to have them all laid out in different positions while I was watching the grab adhesive go off and just going back over and tweaking it. Sometimes you have to weigh it down or cut a wedge in or put a bit of tape on. I just thought that's a lot to do on a lot of them when I can just have it done and dusted in one. And because I cut the beads so accurately, and then all I had to do was just, a bit weird really, but use my panel saw as a bench, and I just kept nipping over here just to retrim the odd one. Just like I said, I cut them all the exact right size, which is kind of right if you can squeeze them in, but if you can't, it's just a bit too long and it messes you about. So I had to retrim the odd little one, then just number them up, lay them out, what you saw in the video, didn't you? But then, yeah, the mitre mate worked a dream for that, to be honest with you. Well, what I've got to do now, I've got to decorate these ends out. That's what I was going to say. I'm going to decorate these ends out. This loose tongue method, I actually got this off an old Peter Millard video. And I do favour it. I think it's really, really good, but it's a pain for low cabinet doors. And typically, luckily, when I do a low cabinet door, it's for a kitchen, and it's normally done on the spindle moulder, or I've dominoed the end, so you don't have the loose tongue to decorate out. And you wouldn't really want to, I don't think. You wouldn't want to be looking down all the time at a loose tongue. And basically, yeah, these are tool doors, so you're never actually going to see it. You know, it'll be like 100mm up from the floor and about 2.6 metre up to the ceiling, so you're never going to see the top and bottoms of them, really, unless you're playing like an elaborate game of hide and seek, in which case, fair play to you, you know what I mean? But basically, I did think ahead. I thought, although I will decorate those out anyway, I thought with the drawers, I stopped the rebate on the spindle moulder a little bit earlier, and I just dominoed the ends so that you haven't got the end bit to decorate out. Obviously, you can just see the seam where the two boards meet. But yeah, saved myself a little bit of work there. So I've sort of gained back by telling you. And basically, face frames. Dominoed all my face frames. So when I made the wardrobes, the carcasses, I use a memory stick and I do all my dominoes. Look on the edge there, I've got all dominoes running all the way at the boards, and they're all set to a gauge, like a memory stick, which I put up in the rack. And then when I do my face frames, I get the memory stick out and I whack it back on there. And that basically gives me the offsets. That overhangs my face frame, in this case, by 1.5mm, which covers the raw edge of the cabinet, which I quite like. Saves having to edge band it as well, but I think it looks sleek when you open the cabinet and you just see straight through the side. And what I do, which I started doing, because you've got the two on the left and the right that need scribing into the wall, I put the dominoes in that offset it 2mm or 1.5mm, whatever I've gone to. And at the same time, when I've got the memory stick out, I basically do another domino on the scribing pieces further in. I try and make that like a nice difference. Like in this case, I've gone for 18mm. So that what I'll do is when I get to the job, I'll throw a few dominoes in these on the 18mm, on the ones that are plus 18mm in, and I'll whack it onto my carcass edge, and then I know that I'm 18mm away from the wall, like, so that, and then I can get an 18mm piece of MDF and a pencil, or I can set the compass to 18mm, which is probably what I'll do. But basically I can then scribe down the wall, and it's handy to do it. It's like an 18 or a 19 or whatever, or 22, whatever boards you're using, because you can use that as your first mark for a gauge. Basically you pencil mark that, to your MDF 18mm or what have you, and then you get the compass out and you scribe down the wall on that line, and then you take the dominoes out and put it back on here, and when you bang it back in, it'll obviously be 18mm over, touching the wall, on the cabinet. Job's a good one. That hasn't worked as a translational sort of like speech thing, but it will work when I do the install and I'll show you. So picture that in your mind, and actually you'll be all right. Yeah, so what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to do a hell of a lot more sanding. Then I'm going to take them up to the spray room and prime everything, and then I'll probably bring it down, do a little bit of filling if the primer doesn't take care of it, and then we'll give it another prime, then we'll do top coats. So how much of that film I don't know. In the meantime, I'll jump on making the drawers.
Right then, we've got voiceover, audio and visual, so really upping the production value of this piece. Basically what I do is I try not to use full sheets for drawers, but in this case I worked out that I was making a desk, so I had a little bit of spare on 2 of the boards because I'm making a desk for something else as well. But it's also really important, I find, when I'm cutting them, and this is what makes it a bit time consuming. You'll see I'm on a cut list there. I'm really trying to consider trying to get one drawer out of one length, which is often doable because most drawers are around about 600. So if you think 600 times 4 size is the length of a board, 2.4, it's just unfortunate that these drawers are a little bit over. So perhaps a little bit more sort of fussing around over this. I also tend not to cut them all the right size to start with. I sort of overdo them, and then I start recutting them, start labelling them. Sometimes I'll put stickers on. Yeah, like a lot of planning and thought goes into this because I don't want to put 2 mismatched boards together. Although I'm and also where I get my boards from, they're stacked in order, so I try and keep them in the rack. If I order, like say I think I ordered 10 veneer boards for this job and another job, I keep them in order in the rack, and I try not to move them around too much so that each veneer is the same, their batch numbers on them, each veneer is the same to the next veneer, so it sort of matches tonally. Right, then it's over to the bench, and you'll see that I use carpet tiles now because we sort of really want to consider these being, you know, not scratched around with the remnants of the glue off the bench. I go through them again and I relabel. I just make sure that I've got them all stacked for how I want them, and at this point I actually give them a light sand because I just think it's just easier to sand them as a panel than it is when they're all together as a drawer. I know they're probably going to get scuffed and marked again as I run through the spindle moulder or whatever I do with them, but yeah, like it's just you know, probably took me like about 5 minutes to sand all of those, and it's kind of a good job done really. Right, and I domino all my drawers together, so you'll see here I make a very crude sort of jig. I'm just relying on the MFT bench. I clamp a board in with spring another little board that overhangs it to stop the drawer tipping when I domino it, and I bang these electrical conduits. I'm not wasting money on bench dogs. It's just a 20mm hole with a 20mm tube. Smash that in there, whack a wedge in, reclamp it, get them all dominoed. You know, if they still sold the Sysvac, the Festool Sysvac, I'll possibly buy that. You can see it's quite a crude thing, but it really does work. It really does speed up the process, because if you had to imagine clamping every board, which is really what you want to do to eliminate any chatter or wobble with the domino, it would just take forever. Okay, and then it's over to the Kreg pocket hole jig thing. Don't know what it's called actually, but it's made by Kreg and it's brilliant. There's no dust from this because that has a little dust port plugged into a hoover which comes on with the machine under the bench. You fly through the pocket holes with this. It's probably the best thing I've bought for the money in the whole time I've been doing carpentry. Yeah, so everything gets pocket holed, and then you're over to the spindle moulder. You see here I always set up a temporary bench behind the spindle moulder, a little bit of fettling, making sure my groove's right. You want the groove, because we're doing undermount drawer slides, you see I had the undermount drawer slide on there, you want the groove 11mm up from the bottom. And what that means is, because you're only doing like a 11mm deep by not a 10mm groove, that actually weakens the MDF quite a lot. But if you're putting it on an undermount drawer slide and you get the overhang just right, all the weight is on the drawer slides, which is really where they come into their own. So actually the drawer bottom is constantly resting on the drawer slides. Yeah, and it's just a case of just running them all through, turning around. Like anything, just create a system and process so I don't have to think. Every time I turn around, it's in the right order. You can see the pile going up and down. It's pretty cool, isn't it? Right, and then it's over to this little edgebander, which I've actually done a separate video on. I'll try and include that now. This thing, again, for the money, brilliant. When at first I couldn't believe how much it costs, but for what it is, when it turned up, I just thought, oh my god, this is just a hot air gun and a roller. But it works. You know, I've worked in joinery workshops before for other people where they've had edge banders, and they're quite problematic. I think if I was to get one, I might get the Festool, I don't know, just for the option of doing curves. But again, it's just the hassle of heating up the glue, whereas this one is just taped straight on. There's very little to go wrong. I haven't really got to worry about servicing it or whacking a new one on finance and playing a maintenance plan. Yeah, it works. So I keep using it basically. And also, I've actually taken this to jobs before. You can whack it in the van. It's a pretty handy little bit of kit. And the only thing I will say is I keep it up in the office because I like it to stay really, really clean. Right, then it's over to the bench to yeah, trim all, which is the only downside to that edge band. Obviously, it's not automated trimming, so you have to trim the ends. What am I doing here? Oh yeah, I couldn't find my file for taking the edge off the veneer, so I just glued a bit of sandpaper to stick. Basically, believe it or not, I never had an edge guillotine. I just used to, I mean, I've always had the hand trimmer. It's a Stanley one, I think. You can get better ones, but yeah, like they're all much the same really. We can do it with chisel, to be fair, but that is a little bit quicker. But I never had the guillotine. I got that off Temu for next to nothing. It's still going strong. I just used to cut them off on the panel saw. Yeah, but basically, again, this seems like it's a lot of work doing all this, but in reality, I think I edge banded all of those drawers, which I sent a few messages, all of those drawers, and trimmed them. I think I probably did it within about half hour, which isn't really the end of the world, is it? I mean, how many drawers is that? 6 drawers. I don't know. Maybe it's maybe it is a little bit long. I don't know. It will probably be about 10 minutes with the edge bander, but it's the cost, isn't it? And it's just, like I say, the maintenance. It bothers me that it's something that's going to go wrong. They're sort of problematic, as I've said before. Okay, so now it's on to the sanding again, basically. Anyone that knows anything about this is sand again. So I've already sanded them, but for some reason I'm using the Rotex as well. I don't know why I'm using that. Oh, it's because I had 320 paper on it and it was just, yeah, being lazy, I suppose. Basically, yeah, everything gets sanded to 320 before I sort of oil or lacquer it. I haven't actually decided what I'm doing with these yet. Yeah, and it's just easier to do it now, like I said, you know, and there might be the odd scratch. I haven't sanded the jaw bottoms because I haven't actually cut those yet. And then it's on to assembly. You'll see there that I've got the little sustainer that I keep all my pocket hole stuff on that goes to site with me. So I've got all my screws in there, and I've got all the bits for the pocket holes. For obviously some of my stuff gets assembled on the job, but in there I managed to find a jig that just about fits in there. I think it's a trend jig, and some Kreg clamps that fit in there. So it just means I've got everything I need in case I miss a pocket hole on the job. You'll also notice that I glue everything. See if I can include a picture, but for a while I messed around with exposed Festool dominoes in the ends of the drawers. It's quite a nice little touch really, but nobody really ever noticed, and you know, I felt like I needed to sort of like justify it by charging extra, and I just thought people wouldn't want it. So I stopped doing it, but when I was doing it, I was gluing everything, because obviously that's the, you know, there was no screws involved. It was just banging a Festool domino in, no pocket screws then, and just gluing them in for a tight fit. And then I started thinking, why don't I glue them all? Because actually it's all one product. It's all veneer MDF, so it will move and contract all the same. And then the glue is sort of holding the panel up into the top of the drawer, because as I've already mentioned when I was over at the spindle moulder, the bottom of the drawer slide is actually quite weak. I mean, when it's all in together, you can't break it out. You can actually like stand on it and you won't break it out. But if you bang the corner, you might damage the MDF a bit. So obviously it doesn't matter because it's kind of all resting on the drawer slides once the drawer's in. But it just means while I'm transporting them and moving them around, they're going to stay a bit stronger. Anyone that knows anything about like PVA, it's so strong when it's onto the end grain of MDF or onto the coarseness of the oak. It's such a strong glue. Yeah, and a little bit of de-snotting, that doesn't take too long either. And then what am I doing here? Probably should have watched this before I started talking. Oh, I'm getting the old Festool OF1400 router out. So I use the Matrix, Haefely Matrix drawer slides. I also use Blum sometimes, and sometimes use the grass. They're all much the same. They have like a little clip-on bit that goes on the front, which does your drawer adjustment, and the drawer slide has to be routed out, or you can actually have that butting into the back of the lip, but I don't like to do that, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But the other bit is the drawer slide itself actually has to be routed out. For ease, I just route them out both the same. I just set up a combi square and I just route them both out to the deeper one, because sometimes I might want to change which way around the drawer boxes go based on how the veneer looks. And then once I've done all those, I actually, rather than use a jig, I actually use the drawer slide. Can't really see it there, but I use the drawer slide as the jig, and I drop it back into the drawer box and I tap it down with a mallet. It's got a little spike on it, and then that tells me where the pre-drill bit goes in to locate the back of the drawer. Then I've just got a drill set up with a stop that I just drill each one out to.
Little break in proceedings. Obviously I'm on the drawers, but I've just in between doing the drawers, I've been up down the stairs in the paint room doing some priming, and I've had to take care of a little bit of filling. One of the seams didn't turn out quite right. All these look nice. These are the doors. They've had 2 coats of primer now, so I'm just going to denib them. Bit of a thing with the water-based primer, although it is it's really good stuff. I've noticed that 1 tight coat, then 1 full coat, then denib. Don't denib between the coats. But here the swallows going. Yeah, basically, this is why I don't like doing it this way. So if I turn you around now, how well that's picking out on the video, you can see I've got to get in there and cork all of that now. Which is just a ball ache. If that was just routed on or done on the spindle moulder, I wouldn't have to do any corking or any filling in between the joins of the beads, which I'm going to have to do just to know that I've done my best. Really, I'm really frustrated that I said yes to putting the bead in like that. Yeah, it wouldn't be so bad if it was only a couple of beads, but there's a lot of beads on every door. I might be overthinking it. As a whole, they look nice, but we're not looking at the whole, are we? We're looking at like every single junction and every little bit, every little gap that we want to cork out. Obviously, I've got to denib this now. Yeah, if I stay straight. This will be the test on it on camera. Yeah, stayed nice and straight to each other. That's good. Right, back on the drawers.
Oh, and then it's over to this bit, which I must admit I do sometimes dread. Anyone that does this sort of thing knows how much of a pain this is, especially when I've left the drawer fronts in the paint room drying. So I've had to mark what height they go at, and then I sort of set up like a little jig for how far back the first hole is. It does tell you on the website. I think it's 37 mil to the third hole. Set my combi square up to that. I always like to have a little chat in the middle of the day. Yeah, basically I set the combi square up to that. That's my sort of forward and backwards measurements. I think it's 1.5 something and 37 mil with 2 different combi squares. And then I set up like a little parallel gauge, cutting like a 9mm strip or something on the panel saw, which does the line of my holes. I find that when you use a square off the front of the cabinet, I find that it doesn't always give you a very good result. I find if you just get your first one bob on, so you'll see what I do now, and then I cut a second one, so I get that drawer spot on for level, with a bit of adjustment that is on them, but you don't normally need it, and then I butt in there a second strip. If you do like a 9mm strip, it will sit perfectly on there because the gap's like 6mm, and then you can draw a straight line along that, do your 2 combi square references, and just pre-drill your where your holes go. Because if you get the holes a little bit out, it will kind of kick the drawer runner, and it will make the drawer kick forward and proud at the front. And although there's adjustment on it, it's like when you fit a kitchen. If you rely on the adjustment of the cabinet doors and you put your door in something out of level, it's possibly going to show somewhere. It's nice to have the adjustment, but really you want to be as good as you can. You'll see this actually took quite a long time to do because I made a couple of cock-ups because it was the first one. I'm doing 2 drawer boxes. So I had to keep going over and retrimming. I was getting things a bit too tight. This is what I mean by sometimes I sort of dread this. And there are times, the main reason I dread it is because sometimes I don't, and I'm going to stop doing this, but I run out of time and I don't do this in the workshop. I just think, or I don't order the drawer runners in time, and I get them sent to the job, and I have to do all this on the job, like on the floor on someone's carpet or something, and you're like, it's just so much easier to do it on the bench. If anything, I could probably prop this up a little bit higher. Yeah, I sort of fly through the second one, it's a lot quicker. And you'll see actually that because I've rebated out the front where those little adjustment goes, little Haley adjustment brackets that click the drawer in and out, it means you get a better fixing for them. You're not relying in like the toe screw that goes like in at an angle into the little lip of the drawer. You're actually screwing it straight through into the end of the board, and I use 19mm boards for my drawer sides. You just have to order the special 19mm drawer slide runners, but I just think they're stronger. I don't like the 15-16mm ones. Also, it's another product you got to stock as well. It might be a little bit cheaper, but you just get a nice stronger drawer, more rigid drawer, and then it means that that screw actually lands at about 9 to 10mm, so it's bang on in the middle of the sort of end grain of the board, so you can just screw straight down or up into it and you get a much firmer fixing. You can use like a 30mm screw or something in there rather than like a, I always struggle with that because it's got to be like a 16mm screw at the angle, and if you get it slightly out you only really get one chance. But you got a bit more play if you use like a slightly slimmer, longer screw. You can sort of manoeuvre it around a little bit. Yeah, told you it was quicker second time round, or did I speed it up? That's the magic of editing. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that.
A little bit of spray footage for you there. Yeah, basically all the drawers are done, as you've just seen. I've just taken them back off. So last night before I left, I got everything out, as you can see, all the oak components. And I brought the hose downstairs from the spray room, and I just literally put a tight coat of lacquer on everything and then topped it over a coat of lacquer before I went with all the air filtration on, just so there's no, you know, no movement and dust overnight from me. Because obviously I'm not working in here overnight. Yeah, and yeah, I sort of picture up to sort of show you that's the system that I do. I'm probably going to start going towards melamines for the wardrobes. It's just that for kitchens and other bits and bobs, I'm actually making an oak larder for someone at the moment. I use oak veneer and I integrate real wood oak with it. And I sort of mentioned it to this customer, which I'll show you in a minute. About the oak lipping, and they were like quite keen for it. So I've used, you know, real oak veneer, but it's unfinished because, you know, you want to sand in the oak, so you don't want the finished one, so you've got to top it back up anyway. So I buy the unfinished one, and a guy contacted me, Martin Cox, on Instagram, and he watched my videos and he was like, I can see you use hard wax oil, Danish oil, sometimes lacquer. He's like, this is a much quicker system, this 2-part epoxy. Apologies I didn't use it because you've got to buff it out by the looks of it, which is quite common with epoxy, and I've got so many components. I think the buffing out would be a bit of a nightmare, but I am willing to give it a go. It's just this wasn't really the right job for it. So apologies if you're watching this. I did say I'll try and get it done in this video, but I think I might actually just do a standalone video of me using it and then reviewing it on a sample piece or something when I get time. Right, so yeah, this is what it looks like all out. Now what I'll do is I'll whack this in the van, and that's how I have the van. Ignore the bit of the rubbish in there, but basically that'll all go in the van now, apart from this, because I always give, like, you know, the harder wearing items like the desktop another coat in the morning. That'll dry within the next hour while I'm loading the van and sorting out my tools and bits and bobs. But I thought I'd show you this lipping. So what I quite often do for shelves, this is a really old shelf which I've sort of turned into a jig actually, but basically I keep it lying around because it just reminds me of how strong it is just to PVA a piece of solid oak to the front of an oak veneer. You can see that's the profile of it. It is only a shelf, so I wasn't too worried about the match of it, but even then it still does look pretty good, I think. Yeah, and then all this is just edge banded. You can get like a slightly thicker edge banding, but yeah, they're just drawers, aren't they, at the end of the day? If they were like, if I was doing them for like a pan drawer or something with harder wearing items and I put a different edging on, you've seen I've put videos, I might try and include one where I put solid wood edging on my drawers. It doesn't even take that much longer, to be honest with you. But what I did with this was I am making this oak ladder. So down there, I won't show you, down there I've got loads of offcuts of oak. I've got, not offcuts, I've got loads of lengths of oak I bought for this oak ladder, which was perfect timing, because then I went through and selected what I thought was the best sort of tonal match for a lipping for the front of this wardrobe, because I wanted it to be quite a chunky lipping, because what the lipping does is it gives it rigidity as well along the front. Very similar to these, in fact almost identical, except with these I wasn't bothered about decorating them out because they're inside the wardrobe, so I've given it a bit of a radius edge, and we're not too worried about it matching. I just went tonally matching. This looked like it was going to match, and then I started gluing it and putting it together, and you can see it's a million miles out colour-wise, which is a shame actually. And actually the seam didn't turn out very good either. There's a couple of little snipe marks off the planer that have sort of crept in there. This is quite nice. But yeah, there's bits that didn't. So what I did was I come up with another system, which I've done before, where I thought, well, I still want it to be a solid edge. So I put on here, you can see that's a solid piece of oak. Oh no, you can't, 'cause I'm not filming it. That's a solid piece of oak. That's 25mm by 40mm. And then what I've done is I've rebaited it. Where's the offcut? That'd help, wouldn't it, Matt, if you had the offcut? He did throw it, he found it though. That'd be better representation. There, so that's the one that was no good, just glued on. It is dominoed as well. And then this one, I just rebaited this one. So it's got a 4mm front on it. You see that? That's a 4mm, like an L shape. And then rebaited, so it's all glued from underneath. That's not actually dominoed, that's just clamped and glued. And then you just arris the edge a little bit. And as you can see, sort of almost disappears really. And then from the front, tonally, that looks pretty good. The only thing I had to do is I had to put these little false ends on, because I've decided I'm going to put a slight horning on it. So I've had to glue some false ends on. I thought afterwards, because I was putting a solid piece on, like with this, because it's shaped the end, which is why I made it that big, because that's how big I wanted the horning. With this, I've had to glue a bit on and put the radius on. Yeah. Full disclosure, I cocked up. Right, cool. So I'm going to load the van up. Next bit of it, and then I'm actually going to drop some of this stuff off on my way home this afternoon, just so I've got some of it off the van. And then I'll bubble wrap all the doors up in the morning and go straight to the job in the morning and just start fitting. So that's when I'll be picking you back up. Hope you've enjoyed this bit of the process. Hope you really enjoyed that in-depth chat about lacquering, rebaiting, gluing, matching. These are all keywords that I'll put in the tags. Yeah, just thought I'd show you a bit of it and how much of a mess I'm in basically. Really could do with a bigger space, to be honest with you. I've got a small little project there on the go, which is all made up now. So basically that's all the painted components for another job. So as soon as I empty the paint room tomorrow morning, I can get them up there and primed at any point, which is where the paint room comes into its own really. Because then once they're primed, I can still be making other bits and bobs as I've been doing with this. It's kind of like a rolling procedure really. But what I do struggle with is space, believe it or not. And there's a lot going on where I'm working at the moment. So I've had to put a load of the stuff in that I keep outside. I've had to put it inside. Yeah, oh, I'm telling you all that. Right, speak to you in a bit. Right, I'm here on the job now. It's a lovely space actually. Look how nice the space is. It's a beautiful space. You can't help but think, what the hell would I have done if the bed and the carpet was in? But having said that, you know, I've struggled before, I've done it before. It's you know, it is a problem, but you always get it done. Normally you just end up piling stuff on the landing, you have to leave stuff in the van. As it is, I've left the painted stuff in the van. So what I've got is I've got all the carcass material, all my tools, some timber to make a ladder frame for the floor, and then basically the idea is to get the carcasses stood up, and I've got to do a little bit of working out now. My ladder frames are pre-cut, but I've got to pack them off the wall enough. I've got enough on the scribes, I hope anyway. I've got to pack them off the wall enough so that everything works in the middle and get the equal margins down the windows. That's the plan anyway. Yeah. Always worries me. Well, I can do worst case now. I can just make a couple more scribing pieces up. I don't want to. I'm just panicking now. Did I leave enough on them? I don't know, I think I've only got 15mm scribe, so, but I did check the square on this one. Anyway, I'll whack you in the GoPro. It's not going to be too exciting for the first bit because most of it is going to be measuring and marking, which I'm not going to document other than just on the time lapse. Yeah, let's see him go in. How about that for a bit of continuity though? If you stuck around this long, thanks very much. You'll remember that I had these little stickers here, which I was going to put over this, which controls the light. Disco! But every time I drilled them, they split open. Obviously they're adhesive on the back, so as soon as they split open, sort of compromise the adhesive. So I didn't really want to. Probably could have persevered a bit more, but I wasted quite a few. What I did do though is, because actually as they're quite tall doors, 2435, I normally put these little bronze antique magnets on the doors, but sometimes they're quite strong. I get them from Amazon, so you don't get a huge din of options with the pull weight. But sometimes when you've got tall doors, and you've got the handle near in the middle, when you pull the door, there's so much resistance on the top and bottom magnets that the door has a tiny bit of flex, which I thought these might, so I'll just put those stickers over the magnets so they keeps them shut, you know, something for them to land on, because obviously, we'll open this one for a little bit of difference. Yeah, because obviously I don't have the edge of the carcass on show. This is a nice little stop, this, you know, this piece here, and to think afterwards I had to put one of these kitchen stickers on the bumpers just to make that the same depth as that, although I did slightly rebate that. It still needs to be slightly proud for the mechanism to work. They've gone for a shelf in there, DOS rail, got the tool bit at the top. Yeah, it just gives the doors a little something to shut to, you know, rather than it just shutting onto a bit of board. Obviously we've got all these drawers, push to open there, which actually I sank back a little bit because I didn't put a handle on it. I thought, do you know what? And I thought ahead, I made the drawer not quite as deep as the desk unit. I sank it back in a little bit. I just think it looks a little bit nicer, a little bit more detail. Speaking of detail, cornice. So this job, I allowed 2 days, which is what I would normally allow. It's purely because you're never going to get it done in a day by the time you load out. I actually loaded out the day before as well, some of it. And yeah, why rush and try and get it in the day? Yeah, and it actually took me 4 days. And it's 4 days over the best part of 2 weeks, purely because at the end of the first day, I actually got really, really sick, and I had to explain to the customer that I've got to go, get me a down over the weekend. And the end of the first day, I didn't get very far because I had a bit of an issue with, you sometimes get this where you've got these like hard edges where you've got angles going against each other. When they've been plastered, or even when it's been plasterboarded, they've not met properly. So actually it's not a straight line all the way across there. It's straight over the window because the plasterer has had the bead to go on. And the windows actually are pretty true, they're pretty good. But that kicks out and that kicks out. So every time I was trying to get a straight line, things were moving. I'm trying to get these square reveals to line through where I want them to marginalise as tight as I could get. As you can see, I've got the margins pretty good, pretty equal. They're within a mil. It was causing me loads of problems. Anyway, I then came back it took me about a week to get over this illness. I came back and about halfway through the first day, I obviously weren't quite on it. I weren't quite right. I could feel it. I could feel I was like, my head was hot, and I wasn't quite ready to come back to work, I don't think. And I dropped the cornice, and I'd actually had a day in the workshop before. I said to the customer, I'm going to go in the workshop for a day just to get my head going, then I'll come back to yours. Yeah, and I dropped the cornice. I cut them both, got them scribed in. I left one up there and I left one down there, and sod's law, that fell off. I just forgot about it. It fell off and it smashed the other one. They got so badly damaged, I had to remake them. So that was end of last week, which was my second day back. And I basically had to go to the workshop over the weekend with my daughter, and we had to remake those 2 cornices. I couldn't eat, I thought about trying to repair them, but when you're spraying, you're asking for trouble really, like with seams and stuff. So I just thought, oh, I'll remake them. Frustrating, but it's done, it's dusty, it looks good. I'm really happy with the spray finish on this. So I don't know if I touched upon it, but it's Renner 643 and as the primer with the catalyst, and then it's Renner 762 again with the catalyst. And it just levels beautifully, you know, it looks so nice. And that is on the Finsa Hydrofugo. So you can see all the details come out really, really nice. That was an absolute pain to do. Don't mind admitting it. Yeah, really happy with the level of detail on it. Everything's lined through as it should be. Yeah, that's got in there an absolute treat, hasn't it? You know, again, it's just snuck under there, nice and neat. Just snuck under there, around there. And yeah, and this is that false edge I was talking about. You can barely see it now. You know, yeah. Really, I'm very happy with that. That's what I'm talking about. It's a shame I've got to go now. I've got to leave it. You know, it's nicer than what's in my house anyway. Right. Sorry, I don't think I said goodbye, did I? Which is sort of like not unlike me, to be honest with you. No matter waffle I do. And the sporadic nature of the filming. Basically, I've got to end the video because it's gone on long enough, hasn't it? Let's be honest. Probably over an hour now. I don't know. But basically, I have no idea. I've no idea. It could be 2 hours. So if you're here now, big up yourself. Thanks very much. Yeah, basically, in summary, it's 22mm Finsa Hydrofugo rather than Styles, 9mm middle panel. Finsa oak veneer. We used oak veneer because they got solid oak wood doors, and I just would feel a bit shoddy about putting melamine in. If you go over to my Instagram, I don't put a lot of work on there, but you will see most of my stuff is oak veneer. I am going to switch over to melamines for the bedroom furniture unless I'm doing something like that where I'm putting a desk on. Finsa have just sent me all their latest oak veneer melamine samples. They're outstanding. I'm actually doing a job at the moment. I've already started it, which I'm doing in Lissa oak. They're so nice. They're so nice to cut and work with. Just no chipping because of the quality of the MDF underneath. I didn't even put the scribing blade on the panel so it hasn't chipped. Yeah, really, really good stuff. But in this instance, obviously we had the solid oak wood lip in. I wanted to match. I do like the oak veneer. It's just it'll cut down a little bit on labour and material costs if I use melamines going forwards. And actually, there's a lot more choices now. They're the textured ones. There's some really like modern fabricy looking ones. Yeah, and all of the insides of the wardrobes, they're all supplied, and the handles, the lights, apart from obviously, as I mentioned, the lighting spools, they are all supplied by Hayfleet. I try and use their own brand stuff as much as I can. That's down to cost, but also the quality is spot on. I would say their hinges, if I'm being honest, the manufacturing quality of their hinges is better than the manufacturing quality of the last set of Blum hinges I was installing maybe like 2 years ago. I just noticed the quality had gone downhill. Don't get me wrong, Blum stuff's still top notch, but the manufacturing, there's like defects in the finishing of the metal. The Hayfleet stuff, it's really well finished. It's really nice. Yeah, and the paint system. So I did touch slightly upon it, but I use Renner Italia paints, Renner coatings. So that's either the 643 primer or the 641 primer. Typically I use the 641 because it's got a bit of better filling quality, but in this instance I use 643 because it dries a bit quicker. False economy because I had to put more coats on. However, both bomb-proof, both great primers. Can't recommend them enough. Trick to the MDF, and I don't think you need to do it on the Finsa, but I do it anyway because I just can't be bothered with the issue of any grain raising. I can hand on heart say there is not one grain raise on all of that MDF on that job. You can shine an LED light across it and you will not see one pimple of a grain raise. It's beautiful finish. And that is achieved by using Finsa Hydrofugo, and pay attention for this, I'm telling you. I saw you drift it, don't drift off, because this is, you know, if you think this is waffle, it's not. And I've had this from the rep today as well. I spoke to the rep about it and he kind of was already telling me what I already knew. video up there about Renner, actually, how good they are as a service as well. Not only the paint's top notch, but the service is great. Yeah, basically, your first coat of primer on any MDF, maybe not the Fincer, but I'm still doing it, is tight, very tight, like a flash cut, very quick, no build hardly. And then let that cook off, and it will cook off quick, obviously, because it's tight. Then you can do the other side within about half hour. By the time you go and done all your panels, you can turn them around, do the other side really tight, walk away. Don't denib it. Just walk away for an hour or so, maybe 2 hours. Then, like, probably it depends what primer you're using, but yeah, walk away for, like, say 4 hours. Then go back and give it a heavier coat, right? And then when that's dry, denib it. Never denib your first coat, because your first coat will inevitably cause the tiniest bit of grain raise. So you want your first coat to dry as quick as possible, and to be as tight as possible, so it causes the longer it stays wet, the more chance of grain raise with the water-based. You can obviously put a sanding sealer on, but it's another application, and I'd be worried about the adhesion, if I'm being honest. If I can get just as good a finish just with 2 products, primer and a top coat, I'm just going to do it. So yeah, then build your primers up, 2-3 coats, go on, get that perfect. Then it's 1 coat of the 762, which is like a hybrid, slightly better version of the original 760. It's a phenomenal paint. It levels beautifully, and it's just 1 heavy coat. I cannot recommend them enough. I really can't. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed that. I hope, you know, it was of some use and it wasn't too boring. Yeah, so if you did like it, please give it a thumbs up. Comment if you got anything useful you want to say, anything constructive, good or bad, as long as it's constructive. I haven't got an issue. I've got broad shoulders. I don't care if you've got issue with something I've done, as long as it's sort of constructive and it's going forward and it's not just, you know, attacking me. Thumbs down, not interested, don't do it. Don't want a thumbs down. Doesn't make no sense to me. Don't do it. If you're going to do a thumbs down, just hit the button, turn it off. Thumbs up, they're welcome. Comments of any sort, they're welcome, unless they're comments like this. So I'm going to read one out for you. Just got this one the other day on my Temu video, which was probably one of my worst videos. Should have been good because it had like the strapline Temu, you know, everyone does one. But my dog just died, so I was in bits. Anyway, this arsehole thought he'd comment on my video. So Byron Darken 7231. The screeching sounds, open bracket, music, question mark, close bracket, has me shutting you down. I'm gone to other sites. Hope Temu stop sending you stuff. Right. Why would you wish anything bad upon me? You know? I don't wish anything. You're an arsehole, and I definitely don't wish anything bad upon you. Mainly because you're creating your own shitty luck. And also, you're not even watching the video probably, because I bought all that stuff myself. Temu aren't sending me anything. For a start, like, no one really sends me anything. I don't really expect it. What have I had? I've had someone sent me a camera to record myself in the van because they're not a nice person. They're not nice. They are a nice person. Someone sent me some epoxy stuff to try that I haven't tried. I've had some lovely phone calls. I've had some other stuff as well. Apologies, I can't actually remember. I've had a great deal. Temu aren't sending stuff. They're not sponsoring people. They're certainly not sponsoring me. Bought the stuff for my own money. It wasn't expensive. That was the whole point of the video. I splashed out about, oh no, can't remember. Go watch the video. Yeah, and while you're there, check out this arsehole's comments. I think I replied to you actually. But yeah, anyway, I'll put your name on the screen just in case I'm getting it wrong. Byron Darken 7231. Nice one. Nice one. Don't really know what you were trying to achieve with that, but you're just a dickhead, mate. But yeah, if you got comments, they're welcome. They are welcome, good or bad. Just make them constructive. Don't tell me you're going, and don't make a comment on something that has no bearing on what I've just done. Yeah. See you on the next one. That could be my new thing, can't it? I'm not going to do that. Yeah. See you on the... I've done it again. See you on the next one.